Welcome back to Have More Babies. Today we're taking a close look at how technology is changing things for children's healthcare. Specifically, we're going to explore pediatric telemedicine. We're using information from Omega Pediatrics as our guide here. Our aim is really to understand how these virtual appointments are affecting care for kids and, what it all means for you.
Exactly. We want to dig a bit deeper than just, oh, video calls with doctors. We want to look at the practical side, the benefits, and yeah, the potential drawbacks too, based on what Omega Pediatrics is sharing.
Okay, so first off, it's kind of hard to ignore how much more common virtual consultations have become. It feels like just a few years ago, seeing a doctor always meant going in person.
Yeah.
But now, connecting remotely, especially with pediatricians, it's really taking off.
Yeah, the information from Omega Pediatrics definitely shows that shift. They're seeing a big jump in virtual appointments being used. And it's not only doctors, right? Therapists, other specialists working with kids, they're using these digital tools much more frequently too. It really points to a fundamental change in how healthcare gets delivered.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Imagine families living out in rural areas. Suddenly, getting to see a specialist, a pediatric specialist, isn't limited by how far you can drive. Omega Pediatrics points this out, how telemedicine can actually bridge that gap. It brings expert care closer, virtually.
That's a huge point. And, it's not just about where you live. Think about kids who have chronic conditions. Omega Pediatrics mentions that doing more frequent check-ins virtually can be just, much easier to handle. It allows for closer monitoring without disrupting everything for constant clinic visits. Plus, doctors can often pull up medical records, track how things are going remotely. It adds efficiency.
And for parents, the convenience is, it's massive. Getting medical advice right from home, without juggling work schedules, school pickups, the whole travel thing.
Yeah.
Omega Pediatrics really highlights this as a key advantage for busy families. I mean, imagine not dragging a sick kid into a waiting room.
Right. And they also mention it's a good alternative when maybe getting to an in-person visit is just tricky for other reasons. Could be scheduling conflicts, maybe not many doctors available nearby, or just the sheer difficulty of getting a child out the door when they feel awful.
It feels like it could genuinely lead to better outcomes too, doesn't it? If you expand access to specialists in those areas that didn't have it before, like Omega Pediatrics suggests, that has the potential to really improve kids' health overall.
And there's the cost angle, too, something Omega Pediatrics touches on. Just think about the savings on gas, maybe parking, even taking time off work. When you skip the travel for certain appointments, telemedicine can make the whole healthcare process a bit less expensive for families.
Okay, so lots of clear upsides there. Big advantages. But we need to be realistic, right? Omega Pediatrics also raises some important limitations, challenges. One of the main ones is, the risk of misdiagnosis. Some things just need a hands-on physical exam, like really listening to a child's breathing or checking inside their ears properly.
That's a critical point. And while Omega Pediatrics does mention new tools like digital stethoscopes, digital otoscopes, things designed to send those physical exam details remotely,
Right.
there's still a very valid concern. Relying only on a virtual look could mean missing subtle things, clues you'd catch in person.
So is a virtual-only approach always enough? That's the question. Omega Pediatrics acknowledges that people have these doubts about the quality of care sometimes. They highlight the risks, the potential for getting the diagnosis wrong, or maybe not choosing the best treatment if you miss those physical cues.
And another thing they bring up is the relationship aspect, that personal connection. It might be harder to build that strong trust and rapport over video compared to being in the same room. And that trust is really important for getting accurate information and making treatment work, especially with kids' health.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then there's the tech barrier. Very real. Omega Pediatrics reminds us not every family has, stable internet or the right smartphone or computer. This could actually create a gap, unfortunately. Who gets to benefit from telemedicine and who doesn't?
And beyond just having the tech, they point out that really young kids, they might struggle to engage with it. Makes it harder for the pediatrician to communicate effectively, to get the info they need. Can you imagine trying to keep a toddler focused on a video screen for a medical chat?
Yeah, tricky. Okay, so if you do go for a virtual appointment, how can you make it work best? Omega Pediatrics offers some really solid, practical advice here.
They do. They really stress the basics first, like make sure your internet connection is solid and have the right device ready, tablet, phone, computer, whatever works. Oh, and finding a quiet spot, somewhere private where you won't be interrupted. That's key.
Good point. And maybe do a quick tech check beforehand. Test the audio, test the video, just so you're not scrambling right when the appointment starts.
Definitely reduces stress.
And having questions ready. Write them down so you don't forget in the moment.
Yeah, good tip. And then during the actual call, try to be really present. Avoid multitasking if you can. Look towards the camera, help simulate eye contact, and just speak clearly.
And if you don't understand something.
Ask. Don't hesitate to ask for clarification. Omega Pediatrics also suggests jotting down keynotes, maybe even ask for a quick summary at the end.
Right. But even with all these tips for virtual care, we can't just forget about in-person visits. They're still vital. Omega Pediatrics really emphasizes that balance. Combining virtual and in-person seems like the best path often.
Yeah, some things just, well, they can't be done virtually. It's that simple. Like Omega Pediatrics highlights procedures, certain tests, specific hands-on exams. You have to be there. And also that chance to build a direct connection, that stronger trust with your pediatrician face-to-face, that's really valuable.
Mm-hmm. And a doctor can pick up on body language, right?
Yeah.
Facial expressions, little things you might miss on screen that can help with diagnosis too. But like Omega Pediatrics points out, for those less serious things, routine follow-ups, or when travel is just really hard, virtual care offers that convenience, that cost-effectiveness. It definitely has its place.
So the main message from Omega Pediatrics seems to be, think carefully about your child's needs. Weigh the pros and cons of both virtual and in person, and definitely talk to your pediatrician. Get their guidance on what's best for each situation.
Thinking about that balance, it really brings us back to trust, doesn't it? It seems so fundamental in pediatrics. Omega Pediatrics really underlines how much telemedicine success here depends on that trust between the family, the child, and the doctor.
Absolutely. Kids have very specific needs, right? They can be anxious. So Omega Pediatrics stresses that telemedicine providers need to be really sensitive to that. Create a virtual space where kids feel okay, where they're willing to cooperate, good communication, empathy that's vital remotely.
And since parents are so central to their kids' healthcare, Omega Pediatrics points out how important transparency is. Pediatricians using telemedicine need to be really clear about how it works, what the limits or risks might be, and how they make sure they're providing quality care for kids virtually.
They also mention the need for the right tools, the right infrastructure, secure video platforms, easy access to the child's medical records, all that needs to be in place for good virtual care. Ultimately, as Omega Pediatrics concludes, building that trust helps people engage better with care, leads to better health outcomes, and just makes families feel more satisfied.
Okay, so looking ahead, what's the future hold? It sounds like telemedicine is probably going to become an even bigger part of pediatric care. Omega Pediatrics seems pretty optimistic about its potential to improve healthcare quality and access.
Well, the convenience alone is a huge driver, isn't it? Like Omega Pediatrics notes, virtual visits save families so much time and hassle, and it might even help clinics run more efficiently, maybe reduce some workload there.
Yeah, maybe free up doctors a bit by streamlining some appointments, letting them focus on more complex stuff. And that ability to reach more kids in rural areas, like Omega Pediatrics keeps mentioning, that could really help close some gaps in care.
And the tech itself is getting better. Remote monitoring, for instance. Omega Pediatrics talks about how telemedicine could allow doctors to get more frequent updates on a child's health, maybe catch problems earlier. As the technology keeps improving, the whole virtual consultation experience is likely to just get smoother, more effective.
And speaking of providers embracing this, Omega Pediatrics themselves, they want you to know they offer telemedicine. It's a service for their patients.
That's right. They get that sometimes coming into the office is tough, so they want to offer that convenient, effective alternative through virtual care.
So the message is, if you can't make it to the office for whatever reason, don't hesitate. Omega Pediatrics encourages you to look into booking a telemedicine appointment with them. They're ready to give you more info and help you figure it out.
Yeah, it's clear Omega Pediatrics is really using technology, including telemedicine, to try and provide the best care they can for kids.
Definitely. And for more details on pediatric telemedicine and exactly what services Omega Pediatrics offers, we strongly suggest you head over to their website. It's omegapediatrics.com. Just check out omegapediatrics.com for all that information.
So wrapping up our look today, using the insights from Omega Pediatrics really shows telemedicine is changing pediatric care fast. Big pluses for access and convenience, but also, important things to remember about needing in-person checks sometimes and how crucial that trust is.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? As healthcare keeps changing, how can you personally best combine the virtual and the in-person to get the absolute best care for your child in this modern world. Something to mull over.
Definitely. And if you found this conversation helpful, please do give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss our future explorations of important topics like this.
Yes, please do. And share this video with other parents or anyone you think might benefit from hearing about this. Thanks so much for tuning in to Have More Babies.
Goodbye, everyone.